It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the Beholder number 7. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today, from October of 1979, we're looking at the Beholder number 7. Hope you enjoy the video. Today we continue our look at the fanzines put out in the United Kingdom by Mike Stoner and Guy Duke. This is called the Beholder. It's the size we're used to. Let me hold up the other one. It's not green. This is the size we're used to. One of mine has a green cover. The other, this sort of orangish yellow cover. Heavy stock, paper folded in half, stapled through the middle. Take a look at the cover art. This is, I believe, Guy Duke's art again. And here's just a blow-up. It looks like 3 characters entering into a dungeon with great fanfare. You got a guy with a scimitar, a smaller guy. I can't tell what he is. He's a furry-headed little guy. Maybe he's a halfling. Maybe he's a dwarf. He's a dwarf, right, because he's got the axe and the shield and the beard. And then in the back, we've got a magic user, it looks like to me. Oh, and we got a thief climbed up, if you look on the right there, around the pillar. There's a thief hiding behind there. He might be a halfling because you can see his toes, right? That's a good guess, I think. This one does not have a huge list because it has some very large articles. We have the editorial, and this is our monster competition issue. It takes up about a little less than half of the fanzine with the new monsters. A report on Dragonmeet number 2, the Goblin Complex, which is their dungeon this time around. A short recounting of narrative recounting of a playtesting, actually of a different adventure that we've never seen before. Sort of review and some first impressions of the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, and then Magic Jar, which is new, magic items. Guy and as I mentioned, Guy Duke, Mike Stone are principally responsible for everything here except for the monsters. And here is the list of people who turned in monsters who show up here. And as they mentioned, this isn't even all of them. I think they said they had maybe 75 in total. So a long list of people who had their monsters show up in this fanzine. As always, there are multiple different covers, and we know the difference based on price. Mine's 45 pence. So that's a first reprint or a second printing. I don't have the 40 pence original. Then there would have been a 50, which is here, also green. A 55 I don't have, and then a 60 pence version, the 5th printing, which is sort of that yellowish orange colored cover. The editorial has a number of interesting things in it beyond the normal how to get a hold of us type stuff. They have some comments here about their trip to Dragonmeet, and where they gave out copies of the Beholder. And they said they're working on hopefully getting the next issue, which is 8, ready for Games Day, but they they think they won't actually have it put together by then. They had a competition last time where there was a deliberate mistake in one of the articles. I didn't see it. They tell us now what it is. In the DM's corner, the mini write-up, the cleric cast a silence spell on the fighter to put silence around him. And so when he touched the lantern to set off a magic mouth, the silence would have canceled out the magic mouth. That's the thing you were supposed to have caught. Later in the issue, they mentioned having back issues available, but they say now by the time we actually finish my editorial and we're ready to print, we don't. They've all sold out, which is a good thing for them. I think maybe what do they say? They have issues 3 and 4 left in 6, which is the last one they just did. And then they mentioned that they have this huge section here with the new monsters and they're really pleased at how many they received for this competition. As they mentioned, someday they might expand the size, but for now it looks like it's going to be the same, around 28 pages per time. And at the very bottom, they've added a stop press note that says, a second reprint of the Beholder numbers 1 and 2 is now near certainty. So now you can reach out to Mike and say, please reserve a copy of that for me so I can get a copy of issues 1 and 2. Here are the Super Monsters, Super Monster competition results, and you can see all of those different pages. Here are our winners, so let's take a look at those first. The Grand Champion, who got a year's free subscription. The monster is the Relcore, and the Relcore is basically a human-ish head with 8 little spider legs around it. And what it will do is kill somebody, rip their head off, and then his little spider legs will climb down inside of the person, and they can use their arms to sort of, I guess, animate you. I don't know whether they stick them into your legs and hands or they know how to connect to your nerves, but somehow or another, they do that. And then they'll go around looking like a, sort of ugly looking human until they see a new victim, and then they'll jump out, usually with surprise, and which they say should be automatic. You save versus fear, or they say save versus wants is the save, or you fall incapacitated, and then he'll jump on top of you and rip you to bits. And then you become the host body for a little while. They do mention that they made a few edits to this monster. The original creator had said that 3d8 would be the damage for this thing, and but he says, or it would be the hit dice, and he suggests each tentacle has 2 hit points and the body has 2d8. Therefore, you can kill the head and it dies, or you can lop off legs and take away some of its mobility that way. Oh, and this one is, first place here is by Peter Bright. Second place is Dave Davies' Stone Creature, and it looks like a stone statue, sort of ogreish in appearance, with red, warty skin. Usually carries some type of blunt weapon like a club, could have a mace, maybe even an axe. And it can freeze like this and become really, really hard, an armor class of 2, or it can sort of soften its skin so it's not quite so stony, and then it can move about. And like I said, generally it's going to use its statue-like appearance so it can follow you around, sneak up on you, etc. All right. And then finally we have the Bleeder, and it's the product of Peter Williams. And they said the Bleeder looks like a rust monster in a lot of ways, but the Bleeder does not absorb metal. Instead, they feed off of the iron in your blood, and so they'll like to get connected to you, to your skin, and then they'll suck the red blood cells out of your body to get the iron out of your red blood cells. And so once they hit, they stay attached to you. And Guy Duke says he made a number of edits to how this guy had written up this monster. So this is a modified from the original. So it makes you anemic so that the blood will flow very easily. You take 1d4 points of damage on the first round. And then the second one, as it begins to suck the blood out of your body, you lose 1 to your strength and constitution. Next round, you're -3 strength and constitution. Next round, your strength and constitution are both reduced to a 3. And then the next round, you are dead. And it takes you basically a day of rest to recover back up one stage of those disabilities or weaknesses. So that concludes the winners. And let's take a look at the rest of what we got. The next one on our list is the Greebly. And the Greebly is this furry little creature. He says terrifying, hairy giant type. Lives in snow-covered wastes of the north, in the deepest and coldest dungeons. They basically just attack you with their fists and give you a good smash. They are afraid of fire, so that would be something particular you could use for defense. The next monster here is the Firefly, and this is a 1-foot-long creature. Large, red, and yellow-striped insects with incredibly high body temperatures, and they can exhale a very flammable substance, and it ignites on the way out of their mouth or their proboscis and basically shoots out a jet of flame. And then if you make any contact with them with your hands or other parts of your body, you take some damage immediately from the extreme heat. If you cover them with water, it will put out the fire part of it, and they won't be able to attack until they can reignite 1 to 3 melee rounds later. The next creature we don't have a drawing for, and it's called the Twirler. It says it's a glowing cone with 3 tendrils at the base and 3 eyes, so it can see a 360-degree circle around it, constantly spinning, and at the top is a pearl-like gem that is a living part of the monster, but very, very hard. And they will basically come and butt you with that, smack you with it, like by running into you. If you can cut off the gem by scoring 4 or more than the normal to hit roll that you would need, you can take the gem and you can sell it for 10 to 200 gold pieces. And if you find a way to make them stop spinning, or if they stop spinning because of death, then the blood overheats and they explode as if it was a 4d6 fireball. And if you hit them with a lightning bolt or a fireball, they will immediately explode and ignite and damage anyone who's nearby. Next, we have the Auriferous Choker. Looks exactly like you'd see there, a manta ray, 1.5 to 2 feet in terms of body length. They appear to be plated in gold. They are not. It's just a feature of their pigmentation that makes them look that way. But then they become very... players don't know that until they basically probably kill it and then get a hold of one. And so they're fairly rare because they are usually hunted on sight by adventurous or otherwise greedy types of folks who see them. They will try to use their tail to trip you. They only need to hit an armor class 10 to do that. They wrap the tail around your legs and force you to fall down. And then they'll wrap the tail up around your neck and try to strangle you to death. So not going to be particularly effective against a party of adventurers, I don't think. Next one, no picture for this one. The Centold. They look like kobolds. They have a small gem next to their heart. If they're stressed, like from combat, they'll turn invisible except for the gem, and then the gem will just be floating around. The gem then begins to show off a scintillating and hypnotic light show. You have to save versus death magic at -3 or basically become hypnotized, and then these little kobolds will come over and try to steal some magic items, and then they'll run away. Again, if they could hypnotize the entire party, that's going to work out well, but being little tiny creatures, if they don't, the remaining party members are probably going to, well, maybe, and they're basically invisible, so maybe you don't figure out what's going on until the magic items start to disappear. The next one is Singing Shadows. These are shadows that have the ability to replicate basically any sound. A mouse squeaking to a mountain breaking, dragon screaming, whatever they want to do. They also have the ability to throw their voice, and they basically try to lure party members into an advantageous place where they can attack them with a smothering attack that does 1 to 10 points of damage per round. And they also can shape themselves into any basically type of shape they want, and you can only hit them with magic weapons. They can be turned as if they were undead. The next creature we have is called the Zap, a torpedo-shaped creature with 2 small eyes and 2 tendrils at the front. They like to bask outside in the sun, storing up energy, which they then release in a lightning bolt attack. And that strength of that is based on how long they were able to absorb sunlight before they attack. Every hour gives them an extra D8 on the, or D6 on the damage. And they have daggers, apparently, they tend to carry around, which seems odd, that they can throw or stab you with if they run out of lightning bolts. They can communicate telepathically and try to communicate with the party. They also can attempt to levitate and get away from you. Next, this guy's awesome. He's the Aulos, A-U-L-O-S. A clever prankster who likes to collect weapons, golds, and gems that he can find. It doesn't use them, it just likes to collect them, and then it buries them, and like a squirrel, and forgets where they are. Its nose is this recorder-looking device which it can use its fingers to play a magical tune. And they had the effect at its choice of cause sleep, invisibility, charm person, charm monster, or increase charisma. And if necessary, they do have claws they can use to try and attack. The next creature is the, again, no picture, the snowbird, a vulture-like bird that inhabits the cold and high mountainous regions. And they are white, and so in a snowy region, they're very hard to see. They can use a spell-like ability called Sleep Snow. And they drop the snow from their wings and cause a spell, this sleep spell effect. And then once a day, they can also cause an ice storm to come forth from their wings. Cold-based attacks are at a negative, and fire attacks do more damage. The next creature is the Zephyr, a gust of wind, basically, that originates from the elemental plane of air. When they come onto the prime material plane, they go about looking for corridors where they can cause some whistling, cause like leaves to brush around. They're just sort of chaotic. Although their alignment's neutral, they seem to be sort of like chaotic little creatures that just like to cause sort of fun or disruption around people. He does say they can push a sudden blast of air that can do 1d6 damage into a half-inch or 5-foot radius and knock over things that are less than 1,200 gold pieces in weight. And if they are reduced to low hit points, they return to their own plane. Then they're confined there like other types of plane-traveling creatures. Cold and heat have no effect on them, but weather spells, control weather, ice storm, gust of wind, etc. can cause harm and force them back to their home material plane. The Oleum are huge globules of fuming sulfuric acid that tend to roll around on low levels of dungeons. 9 hit dice. They release flying globules of acid, 2 each round, chance to hit of 40%, and then that's adjusted by, instead of like a normal to hit roll, you subtract the character's dexterity, their base armor class, and so there it seems like they're saying lower armor class, like no armor, is going to be more likely to get away than high armor. And then range, there's a penalty for being further than short distance. As it says, magical armor would be armor class 10, so the magical armor gives you a big bonus. If you're hit, then you roll a d20 to see how much acid hits on you. 1 to 11 is normal, which is 3 to 30. Then otherwise, you get damage on your left leg is completely dissolved, your right leg is completely dissolved, left arm, right arm, or completely engulfed, i.e. you're dead on or if you roll a 20. Normal weapons dissolve when coming in contact with the acidic creature. Magical weapons are not dissolved, but do not do any damage. So that's a pretty tough creature. So the only way to destroy an Oleum is with fire or cold-based attacks. Electrical attacks will disrupt them for a melee round, basically kind of stun them. And then you can use lower water or part water because of the liquid nature, I guess, what they're made up of, and do some serious damage. Here we have the Ebon Queen, a black-robed, black-skinned woman with burning red eyes who often rule over a group of the Black Orc tribe. And basically they have a breath weapon of a black cloud, 30 feet long, 5 feet wide, used 3 times per day. You get a saving throw versus poison to get away before taking effects. If you fail, you'll be covered in a black deposit that can only be removed by Dispel Magic or Holy Water. And then if not removed, it begins to heat up. The first round, you just basically feel warm wherever it hits you. Second round, 1 to 3 points of damage, then 1 to 6, 2 to 12, and 3 to 18. And you go from being unable to fight, being incapacitated, being unconscious, and then after the 5th round, it's over. And if you're still alive, it'll immediately cool down to normal temperatures. And if you're, again, you'll be at that point you'd be unconscious for 1 to 6 turns, but then you can wake back up. The next creature is the Reganch, formed in a wizard's lab. These wild dogs have been changed or mutated into small cat-sized animals with mottled gray fur. The fur enables them to merge with their background so they can surprise on a 1d6. They can bite you for 1 to 4 points of damage, but contact between this is the cool part, the skin and the saliva will cause the affected area, so like a small area, to harden but yet remain flexible, giving that particular spot an armor class of 3. But in contact with metal, leather, or previously mutated skin, the saliva will dissolve it away. your armor, like your metal, your leather, would get a save versus acid. And then if they bit the same place again, you would lose the previous hardening. So the immediate thing that I think of with this is, well, I would capture these creatures, right? And then basically, like you're milking a snake, get their saliva and coat my magic user one time in the saliva, harden his or her skin to armor class 3, and they got like great natural armor and just never get around one of these creatures again, right? I don't know how that's not foreseeable. That's exactly what I think any character would think of if they, thought about this effect, because it's, again, a little spot, doesn't really help. It doesn't do any damage to you. You just sort of rub it around your skin and you get this magic skin. It's a pretty cool effect. Other than that, they're just funny little creatures. All right, so our next creature is the Flailer, a gray-white humanoid with 2 long legs and multiple bony arms. And when they see you, they will begin to spin around, and its arms are just out there. Its multiple arms just basically create a circle of flailing. If it hits you, it does 3 to 12 points of damage. And they can hit as many people as are around them in a round. If you hit them with a device, then you exceed what you needed by 4, then you'll be deemed to have hit one of the arms. Then your weapon has to save versus a normal blow in the DMG saving throw chart, or be broken, or there's a 50% chance it gets knocked out of your wielder's grasp. I'm not really sure how your weapon, like say a sword, has a chance to break, and that the arm doesn't have a chance to make a save to break. But anyway, that's the way they wrote it up. But the weapon does, nonetheless, whatever happens, do its damage before it's broken or flung away. And then a arrow attack or missile attack has a 10% chance. If it hits, then there's a 10% chance it actually gets deflected without doing any damage. The next creature I like quite a lot. I'm not sure if think of it as a monster, but this idea I like quite a lot. It's called the Dozasaurus. And it looks like a small animated puzzle. It's actually a bacteria colony. And what they like, semi-intelligent, and even the intelligence low, but they say they try to get into serving vessels. So somehow this creature can know what a potion bottle or a wineskin or whatever looks like, and will try to get into it, right? So there's some sort of magical intelligence involved. So here's what's cool. I don't know if it's a monster. I don't know if I would do this with a potion, but I like this idea here. So here's what's special about it. It looks like a potion. I mean, it looks like a liquid. And it behaves like one. Once it is imbibed for the next 2 to 7 days, whenever your character is in a stressful situation, so for sure combat, but maybe other things, you go to the magic potion chart in your DMG or whatever, ODD, basic, whatever you're using, and you roll a random potion, and the creature releases that effect into the bloodstream, and that effect will take over on your character. That could be poison, that could be heroism, invisibility, anything on the list, and you just roll randomly. And that happens every single time you're in stress. So you're like the Incredible Hulk, right? Whenever you get into combat, you're going to get a spell effect. Could be good, it could be bad, could kill you, but it's kind of, I like that quite a lot. Now they say every time, the first thing you do is you should have the character roll a saving throw versus poison, and if they're successful, then they feel something, but there's no magic effect at all, no matter what it was going to be. I guess that probably makes sense, right? Because you got to give them a save. If it was poison, for example, you'd have to give them a save so they didn't die. And so, in any event, I guess it's a little odd to me when you stop and think about the rule. Like I drink a potion, if it's good, it just automatically. I guess I want that to happen, even though maybe I don't know what it is, and so it automatically does. But if it's bad, I get a saving throw to keep me alive. I don't know. That makes me think about the whole nature of the rule of saving throws versus magical effects. But that's a little off topic here, right? But anyway, I like that random magical effect, and of course it happens delayed, and it happens over a number of days, and then it's gone. It works its way through your system. But anyway, I really like that one quite a bit. It maybe is my favorite monster of the whole group because of the creativity of that. The next one is called a Hot Steam. It's an undead, a life essence of absolute lawful evilness. It is in the form of steam, so it can assume different shapes to the steam. It could look like a dragon, an ogre, whatever it wants. It's invisible in normal light, but if you're using infravision, the heat, you get the heat signature and you would see that body shape, right? So it can sort of confuse you or fool you into thinking you see, for example, a dragon up ahead. So it will use its ability to try and lure weak-looking party members into a strategic area. And when you get to within 10 feet of it, it reforms into a sphere 15 feet in radius, and everyone inside of there is subject to this hot steam attack, which is the burning steam. It gets to hit you on armor class of 10 plus I would give you plus dexterity, but not any armor bonus. You take 1 to 4 points of damage from heat, and then if you don't make a save versus poison, you will suffocate from the extreme heat and inability to breathe well within 1 to 8 rounds. You can turn them; they're undead, so you can turn them like a shadow. Next we have, I think it's called the Vampire Dozer. I'm not sure. It's Dosser. A normal vampire, but lives its life as a wandering monster and just hangs out, sleeping in, quote, odd corners, any odd corner he can find. Looks like a human meths drinker. His vampire pallor is disguised by the dirt, his fangs hidden by his beard. And he'll be pushing something like a cart around with his coffin in it. And he says he's an odd creature, supposed to be kind of a weird gonzo creature. He'll normally start a conversation asking the characters if they could have his fare to help him get back to Transylvania, or he'll give you a tune on his mouth organ, which is his little instrument, which has magically enchanted and can cause charm and sleep anyone within 50-foot radius. But other vampires do not like them. So there you go, 20-some monsters for you to enjoy. It's, again, lots of fun. Next, we have the report from Dragonmeet, and basically they said it was a good time, but they talk about the games they played and essentially say, this is how I'd characterize. Like the DMs running these games, they weren't very good. At least these guys did not enjoy it. But they thought the organization was really well done, and said there were some people at this computer area, and people were just lined up waiting for a really long time to get their turn to try and play these games for free, well, computer games. His attendance was down. There was maybe a sci-fi convention called CCon that was going on at the same time, and maybe it was kind of splitting the attendance. And by far, the huge thing was that the TSR Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide was on sale, so it was the first time anybody had a chance to get a hold of a copy and get a look at it. They thought they sold out, I think, or nearly sold out of their fanzines that they took with them. Next, we have the Goblin Complex. This is their adventure. This is a very good one. It is. Here's the map. Very well done. This is a Goblin Complex. So there's the real thought they've talked about before put into how these goblins and hobgoblins sort of all fit together. It is a lot of goblins and hobgoblins, room after room, and then you get to the final room. There's a dragon, a very small dragon that they're. In my mind, I would make the dragon sort of the boss, if you will, that these guys, even though it's young, are sort of under its spell, and that they're here to guard it, and it's giving them the direction that they need. That's how I think about it. It's a really good one. It's probably not even a full session, assuming your characters are moving through, plowing over these guys. They do make several comments about noise and alarms, and how the other goblins, hobgoblins in the nearby area will react and come after your, set up basically defense and come after your party, rather than just sit in the room waiting for you to show up and attack them. Interestingly, there'd been requests for a playtest narrative, and they said, here we go, but this isn't any dungeon you've ever seen before. This was a walled keep in a central tower guarded by samurai, and we were sent there to find the king and bring him back. They go through it. They use some clever use of a wizard lock spell to protect when a whole bunch of samurai were going to come after them, and they sort of locked them away, and apparently they never found a way to come circle around and get to them. There was a brief fight. They managed to get a hold of this larger samurai that was in this combat, who turns out was the king. They didn't know, but for some reason they decided to kill him rather than drag him out alive, and cut off his head so he could they could talk to him later and ask questions. For example, where's the king? But unfortunately, they found out after they left the keep that they'd killed the king. That's whose head they had, and so they couldn't get the reward. But anyway, fun times, as they describe it. Here's the review discussion of the Dungeon Master's Guide. They say, fantastic book. You've got to get it. There's so many great rules in here, and you're going to want to have it for your home campaign. I think it's interesting. I'll mention some of the things that they point out that maybe we take for granted. So he says the first 80 pages consist of material adding to and explaining information from the player's handbook. I don't never really notice that that's what the first 80 pages were sort of gloss for the player's handbook. New dangers in here, he says. Aging and disease are dealt with, and so those are two new things dungeon masters are going to start applying or using in their home campaigns for the characters to worry about. New stats for player characters, tables for height and weight. Other traits, and remember that your background, your sort of secondary skills, things you had done before you went adventuring. Tables for gems, which they have had in their fanzine recently. New types of armor, elfin chainmail and full plate armor. More explanation of character classes and races. More explanation for thieves' skills. The Paladin's Warhorse, how you can acquire spells, how the right magic spell works, and adventures for land, water, and air. He says combat, 25 pages in here. Gaining levels are no longer automatic, that you get the experience points and then you have to go and, pay someone to train you and just help you study. More information on the world around you, government, ecology, where you put your treasure. And then the section on converting to Boot Hill and Gamma World, which he did not expect. But, back in the day, I think that was a really common thing and probably a fun sort of one-off, take your regular campaign off to a different sort of world altogether and let them come back. It probably provides a nice break. And then he says the section which will be most secretive to the DMs, which it clearly was not, is magic items. It talks about magic research, preparation of potions, scrolls, and all the magic items. I mean, that was not the most read section. It was second only to using the charts for the hit rolls and saving throws, I think. He talks about all the different types of magic items you're going to get in there, and then the appendices at the back, which he found to be really helpful. Random dungeon generation, random monsters, wandering monsters, and then he thinks the most useful appendix is the alphabetical monster listing that has the monsters' attack, defenses, hit dice, armor class, and experience points. As well as the index, which gives you where things are both in the DMG and the player's handbook, which he again thinks was a really smart thing to have a complete index like that. As well as all kinds of other things, gambling tricks, traps, herbs, spices, medicine, and other little details that you can use throughout your home campaign. But as I said, in the end, he says that my main piece of advice is you have got to buy this and buy it as soon as you can. It's really well made. It has great content, and you really can't afford to not have it. It's exactly what TSR wanted you to think. Then we get some random magic items here. Magic jar. Pheasant's Howling Skull is basically you put down to guard, you set up conditions, and anything comes near it doesn't know the password, it'll start screaming and alerting everybody around it. The Castle Parasite, which I would more call the Stone Parasite. You put this little mechanical, which is an interesting device, on a piece of stone, and it'll basically go into it and start consuming or eating the rock or stone, leaving nothing behind, and eventually it will weaken it. It says in 1 point of structural damage every 3 hours until a wall is completely destroyed, and it basically keeps doing that until either it's killed, which remember hard to do because it's in the middle of the stone, but if you found it and you knew what it was, you could dispel magic and basically deactivate it. Otherwise, I think it would just keep eating the stone until there's nothing left. The Cursed Illusion Sword looks like a +1 dancing sword, but that's an illusion in the mind of the player, so he or she makes a save right when they get it, and if they fail, they'll think they have a dancing sword, and in fact they will see the illusion of a dancing sword even though it just falls to the ground when they let go of it to have it dance. The Wall of Skulls is a little 3-inch square, 1/2 inch block of carved ivory with skulls on it. You use the command word, it gets really big, 10 by 10. You could use this to block the passage, like to keep something from following you. And when they get near the skull, the actual skulls will chomp and try to bite people. It says if you try to smash through, you will take 3 to 36 points of damage from ripping, tearing of the skull. So maybe some of them have horns to spike you with or whatever. I think you'd have to think about that, because what if I decide to smash it with, a long polearm type weapon? Doesn't seem like you could, because the skulls can't come out of the wall. They got to stay part of the wall, right? So anyway, but the idea that it can expand and fill the corridor, I like that. It's a pretty good item. And finally, a very particular item, the Ram Head of Terrible Destruction. Looks like the skull of a large ram, but it's super strong. It takes 50 points of structural damage to break it, and you can mount it on a post or a pole as a battering ram, and it does damage as a double-strength horn of blasting when you're trying to break into somebody's keep or castle. Here's a silly little illustration, no credit given. Looks like this thief has gone down the mouth of this statue, and the other person says, "What are you looking for?" And then this was just the rear page. They got an advertisement, post-free mail order, and the guy, Conan looking guy, is sitting there reading the mail order catalog for Model Workshops Limited. Here's the rear cover, the typical stuff, information for copyright, advertisements, subscriptions, contributions, and contact. So that's our look at the Beholder number 7. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hope you enjoy our series, and I hope that you're subscribed to the channel. If you have friends who might enjoy it, please send them our way. We can try and build our subscriber base. You guys have a great Friday, great weekend. Until next time, keep rolling 20s.